Happy Sabbath this morning for the reading that I'm going to do for the Sabbath day. I'm going to read from Revelation 14, verses 3 to 5. And we're going to explain more specifically what the verse 5 means. Well, let's start from the very beginning, 1 through 5. And I looked, and lo, a lamb stood on Mount Zion, and with him 144,000, having his father's name written in their foreheads. And I heard a voice from heaven, as the voice of many waters, and as the voice of a great thunder. And I heard the voice of harpers harping with their harps. And they sung as it were a new song before the throne, before the four beasts and the elders, and no man could learn that song but the 144,000, which were redeemed from the earth. These are they that were not defiled with women, for they are virgins. These are they that which follow the Lamb whithersoever he goeth. These were redeemed from among men, being the firstfruits unto God and to the Lamb. And in their mouth was found no guile, for they are without fault before the throne of God. So to truly understand who the 144,000 are, you have to go back to Revelation 7, where they are first talked about by John. So John sees a time where he pictures the earth, and there's four angels standing on four corners of the earth holding four winds. And John says that they're holding the winds so that the wind should not blow on earth, nor the sea, nor any tree. Verse 2, and I saw another angel ascending from the east, having the seal of the living God. And he cried with a voice to the four angels, to whom it was given to hurt the earth and the sea, saying, hurt not the earth, neither the sea, nor the trees, till we have sealed the servants of our God in their foreheads. And I heard the number of them which were sealed, and there were sealed 144,000 of all the tribes of the children of Israel. Then John goes to the 12 tribes, and he numbers 12,000 out of each tribe. Okay. So after he goes through each tribe, verse 9, he says, after this I beheld, and lo, a great multitude which no man can number, of all nations and kindreds and peoples and tongues, stood before the throne and before the Lamb. So pictured in Revelation 7 is two classes of people, the 144,000, which are sealed out of Israel, and verse 9 pictures a great multitude from all nations, kindreds, and tongues, which no man can number. Today, we're going to specifically talk about the 144,000 because they do come from Israel, but this does not necessarily mean a literal Jew, which we can identify as Jewish, but it also means anybody that ever had the blood of Abraham in it that is sealed, but it's not just the ethnicity or a drop of that blood in them. You can be an Israelite and not have any identifiable features. Like people might not recognize you as a Jew. You could be a black man, you could be a Hispanic man, and still have the blood of Abraham. Because remember, the blood of Abraham, God said, was going to be as the sand of the sea. So that's what happened to the Israelites. They were dispersed. By the time Jesus came, the Messiah, we know that the first 10 tribes had already been dispersed amongst the nation, and there was only the 2-tribe kingdom of Judah. So Judah was only 2 tribes. The other 10 were already lost and dispersed and basically integrated into the heathen nations. So they had lost their racial identity. Then shortly after, Christianity is born. The Christians who were carrying the gospel were integrated into the Gentiles, and that caused the gospel to spread. So out of that, we have, the early Christian church. Then we have a falling away where the Christians are persecuted. And then out of that movement, we have the Protestant Reformation. So Abraham's seed basically is not necessarily with the identifiable ethnic Jews that we see traveling back to Jerusalem, but any one of those early Jewish Christians who disseminated throughout the four corners of the earth and spreading the gospel, lost their racial identity, could be a part of this promise. We may not know that we are part of those tribes, but God knows. He's never lost track of that. The Bible says that God himself has a census. He says that this man is written in the book that this man was born here in the Psalms. Okay, so the 144,000 have an attribute, which is without guile in their mouth. And I'm going to read from this. Without guile in their mouths. The very fact that the 144,000 are to have no guile in their mouths is not only an evidence that they must proclaim the truth and nothing but the truth, but that their language must be free from all unbecoming words. And if we are to be among this elect company of God's children, it will be necessary for us to weed out our speech, all the sly innuendos, covert insinuation, expletives, and meaningless words and phrases. Okay, for those of you that do not understand what expletives is cursing or crude language, I guess. We are told that our language should be so pure that the most sensitive could not truthfully say that there is the slightest intimation of impropriety, so kind that the most timid would have no fear, so truthful that no doubt could possibly arise in the minds of our hearers as to our veracity or truthfulness. As the Lord has called us to prepare for the seal in our foreheads, he has also called us to purify our speech and to be without guile in our mouths, and thus be the servants of God in the time of the loud cry. Hence, the fact soon became evident that not only the young people at Mount Carmel needed to study language from a higher point of view, but that the older members also were in need of the same instruction. Okay, I'm going to skip over that part and go to where we get back to talking about the language. By approaching the study of language from a higher point of view, we were compelled to declare war on the withering curse of human society, gossip, which we brought with us from our homes and our churches. As we took stock to see where we stand, we were surprised at ourselves when on the backboard we saw written many covert insinuations, sly innuendos, meaningless phrases, and expletives which had crept into our language, and which we discovered were being employed very frequently, although sometimes innocently, by most of us. Already there is seen decided improvement, and we have determined that our influence shall no longer counteract the good work done for the young people and children in the classroom. Thus, by organizing this class, a twofold work is being accomplished. Firstly, we are learning to use our mother tongue correctly, and secondly, we are weeding out of our language those soul-destroying words and phrases which lead us insidiously into the wicked thing called gossip. We, as candidates of the 144,000, are encouraged, therefore, with the possibility of becoming saints without guile in our mouths. With this sweet prospect before us, why should not every present truth believer determine to overcome every besetment and receive the seal of God and reflect the image of Jesus fully? For the encouragement of both old and young, we quote the following: "The workman for God should make earnest efforts to become a representative of Christ, discarding all uncomely gestures and uncouth speech. He should endeavor to use correct language. There is a very large class who are careless in the way that they speak, yet by careful, painstaking attention, these may become representatives of the truth. Every day, they should make advancement. They should not detract from their usefulness and influence by cherishing defects of manner, tone, or language. Common, cheap expressions should be replaced by sound, pure words. By constant watchfulness and earnest discipline, the Christian youth may keep his tongue from evil and his lips from speaking guile. Counsels to Teachers, page 238. So the 144,000 have learned the lesson or the discipline of correcting their speech, which is something we all need to work on. And they say that, we need to make advancement every single day in this area. I think we have all become a lot of really influenced by social media and the joking that goes on there. But here we see that our speech should not be as one to make innuendos, cheap expressions, gossip, cursing, uncouth words, all these things that we see on a regular. We are called to turn away to be part of this class. The 144,000, if you study them in the Bible and everywhere the Bible speaks of them, they're the first fruits. Okay, they are the first fruits of a great spiritual harvest. If you go back to Revelation 7:9, you will see that the second class of people, the great multitude, that's the rest of the spiritual harvest of souls that happens in the last days. We know that Revelation is a revelation of things that are to come. So John saw a lot of things that would happen in the future, and that's why it was called the Revelation. Because throughout the Bible, especially in Daniel, we have a lot of prophecies, but the revelation is the revelation of those prophecies in Daniel. Remember, Daniel didn't understand the dreams he had. And the angel told him, we're going to lock up that understanding till the time of the end because it's not for your time. But now we're definitely in the time of the end. So those prophecies and the other parts of the Bible that are seemingly mystic are now opened up to us. And the revelation is used to decode those prophecies. And that's why it is called the Revelation. So here we have all those symbols that we had in the Old Testament, all the things that the Israelites did as far as the feast days, the first fruits, the Feast of Tabernacles, the Day of Atonement, from the way that they gathered all those things and celebrated it through those days. That gathering of the harvest, there was a special ceremony where the Israelites took a tenth of their harvest. It was called the wave sheaf offering. And they took the tenth of their harvest before they were able to gather the rest. And they presented it to the Lord as a living sacrifice. This was the only sacrifice. Okay, one of the only sacrifices that was not burnt. It was presented, the wave sheaf was presented as a living sacrifice to the Lord. They would bring it to the priest, and it was dedicated to the Lord. And so it was used by the priesthood, and only after they did this ceremony would the whole camp or number of Israel, the whole people of Israel, go ahead and gather the rest of their harvest. Okay, so we can see that the Bible perfectly uses the type or symbol, and it's revealed in the Revelation what it actually meant. They weren't just doing these feast days for theatrical purposes. They all represented the spiritual gathering of souls at certain points in history, in the earth's history. So at the very end of time, we see the ordinance of the wave sheaf offering being played out in the actual At one point in history, we have a symbolic ritual. But then when the time comes for the revelation of what it is, we see in the revelation, it's an actual gathering of souls. The first fruits are the first to perfect Christian character. 144,000. They're probably non-identifiable Jews that have the blood of Abraham. They can be any color, any race, but they have the blood of Abraham. And they are gathered, 12,000 from each tribe. They may not know who they are, but they will at some point in time. After that, Revelation 7:9, the great multitude who no man can number in the last days is gathered, and they also are victorious, and you can tell by their uniform they have a white mantle and a palm branch in their hands, representing victory, as Jesus had victory when he rode on the donkey and the palms were waved to him. He was recognized as the Messiah. So that's a lesson about the 144,000. It does get much more deeper than this, about this special class of people. This is just one aspect of their character that is different from the world. So we know that, they are called to be different, and there's several attributes that we can go over. This is just one. This is without guile in their mouths. Thanks for watching.